Welcome to Monday, March 11th, 2024. Your day weather podcast on this Monday is going to be talking about a mild start to the week. Boy, it was really a pretty good weekend for a lot of you out there. Really nice weekend. But it's March. And what does March weather mean? Well, March weather means you get nice days, you get stormy days, and there's a lot of back and forth. And that's exactly how things are going to unfold. We'll continue to have mild spring-like weather today and Tuesday across most of the Intermountain West and the Western High Plains, a continuation of the nice weather we had over the weekend. The Pacific Northwest, though, we'll be looking at areas of rain and snow, and we're going to see some snow into the mountains of Idaho, western Wyoming, northern Utah, maybe some of the higher mountains in northern and central Colorado by late tomorrow and into early Wednesday as a little push of moisture comes through. But the main event is going to be the interaction between a Pacific weather system surging its way off the coast into the Great Basin, interacting with a surge of some colder air coming in out of Canada. It's kind of a combination of two weather systems working together. Instead of one system, it's a couple. And where the exact placement of where these two systems merge will show us where the heaviest precipitation in the form of wet March snow is going to fall. So there's going to be a little bit of variability still in the forecast, although our confidence level is growing in terms of the general vicinity of where the better snow, heavier snow will fall. But the graphics I'll show you need to take with a bit of a grain of salt on this Monday. As we get into tomorrow and Wednesday, we'll hem in and kind of find the better placement of where we think the heavier moisture is going to be. So travelers and livestock interests, you need to be prepared in some areas. What areas? We'll show you. A colder pattern develops behind this storm. In fact, if a few things fall into place, it could get downright chilly behind the storm this weekend for a large part of the west, central, and eventually colder air spreading across the rest of the U.S. So there's still plenty of cold weather still possible in the month of March with this system and the colder air coming in behind it. And the weather pattern is going to stay very busy. Some showers in New Mexico late last week with that system moving on through. And for New Mexico and parts of the southwest United States, you're going to get into this action as well. And we'll show you here in a moment. The satellite imagery shows a large area of low pressure here in the Gulf of Alaska. Notice the very strong, and we know what this means. When you get a strong Pacific jet coming into the North American continent, it's going to induce a wave. As it hits the North American continent, this is going to cause a trough to form. Out ahead of it, we've got a little bit of Pacific moisture here, but mainly these are wave clouds. High and mid-level lenticular clouds will show up in some areas. The colder, moist, energetic air is still back here off the Pacific, but this area of moisture is going to come crashing into Washington and Oregon later today, tonight, and into tomorrow, and into Northern California. So this is what we're going to see today. A little bit of wave, a little bit of moisture coming out with that system, rain along the coast. There's those strong jet stream winds we just showed you coming in across the Pacific. Elsewhere across the nation, mild Pacific air kind of flooding the zone. So going to be a very mild stretch of weather there and really not a lot going on, at least for today and into early tomorrow. But things begin to change. This is the forecast precipitation through Tuesday evening. So you can see the northwest United States with the leading edge of some showers getting into Yellowstone, Jackson, into the Wasatch Front here. Nothing really heavy, some mainly shower activity with the first salvo of moisture coming on in. However, when we get into the larger scale things, in terms of the lower pressure systems and that Canadian system, you'll still see things change. So this is sort of what will happen today and tomorrow. Moisture coming off the coast into these areas that you see here. But along and east of the divide, really nothing going on. Hence, 2 more days of nice spring-like weather. But as we get into tomorrow night and into Wednesday, this is where we see that straight line, strong jet stream get amplified. It buckles. As that strong jet stream pattern hits the continent, you're going to get a wave forming, and that wave comes together and gets organized over Utah. Now, this is by Wednesday afternoon. Now, it doesn't look like much, but there is a little bit of a wave right here coming out of Canada, sending colder air south into the region. This low here is actually going to kind of just park itself and head this way. It's going to head down into Arizona and New Mexico, while this wave up here comes out across the plains. So what ends up happening is the counterclockwise spin around this low and the clockwise circulation around this high will feed moisture out ahead of this low. The colder air comes out of Canada. And what ends up happening is we get a boundary that forms between that colder air out of Canada and the moisture coming up out of the southwest and the southeast over this area. And you'll see where this axis of moisture will want to sort of converge between the two systems. By Friday, notice I told you how it's going to want to head south and west. Look at that. What that'll do, and there you can see the trailing area of that low pressure coming out of Canada. This is by noon on Friday. So this guy's going to retreat back down here and keep it wet in the desert southwest while this system heads east. And then the door opens the colder Canadian air behind it. The end result of these two systems working together is going to end up producing this type of precipitation pattern. So if you watch to see how things translate eastward and southward, we talked about a bit of an axis forming of where that heavier moisture is going to be, which is going to be right here in this particular area, which means it's going to cover sections of Interstate 80 across Wyoming and Nebraska, I-25 in Wyoming and Colorado, I-70 as well. So you can see that moisture also, over time, begins to push down into Arizona and New Mexico here later. So where the two systems kind of converge is this axis right here. And this is where we need to watch the threat of heavier snow. Now, this axis may be a little more north. It may be a little more south. As we get a little bit closer, we can fine-tune things. It's not a terribly wide band, but it is a band that the moisture under it could be heavy enough to produce some heavy snowfall. Look at the foothills here along the front range of Colorado, and there's this axis right here of that heavier snow. And look at the snows down in Arizona and New Mexico's mountains. These will come later as that low backtracks to the south and southwest. So this area right here for travelers is something that we need to watch right here as that storm unfolds and comes through. But notice elsewhere, we've got snow in the mountains of the rest of Wyoming, back into Montana, Idaho, back into Utah, a classic March event. And there may very well be more snow in this area here than what the model is showing. That's why we need to get a day or two closer to really fine-tune things. And it will be cold. Cold air comes in behind the system. This is the average of temperatures from Thursday through next Tuesday. So colder air kind of comes in with this storm all across the Intermountain West. And then this is by Saturday evening. That high continues to grow and push northward. And when highs push northward along the coast, that turns our air southward. You can see from that blue arrow there, winds aloft are coming right out of Canada into the Rockies, into the plains, and this front will then track across the rest of the United States. This is a cold look behind the storm and a cold look that could go into next week. These are the temperature anomalies by Sunday. Much, much colder, far below the 30-year average. In fact, temperatures here along the Front Range are very, very chilly for the middle of March on St. Patrick's Day. So stay tuned. We'll have more details as we get a little bit closer, but it does look like we're going to have some areas of the West dealing with a March snow event. The long range continues to look very active. The Eastern Pacific Oscillation is going into a negative phase right at midweek when that low comes in and stays strongly negative through the 25th of March as the Arctic Oscillation is wavering near that negative range as well. So our long-term teleconnections continue to show us the pattern's going to stay active. Have yourself a good Monday. More updates coming tomorrow.